All right, well, yeah, so this is super exciting. This is the Cool Roofs first podcast.
Number one, numero uno.
Numero uno. And, real quick, the purpose as to why we want to put this podcast together, not only just for our consumers out there in the roofing industry to learn more about the products and the services that we offer here at Cool Roofs, but just the wealth of knowledge, especially Mr. Hudson Whitten here, which he'll get into 15 years of background roofing experience that we don't only want to equip our sales reps with, but just bring out to the marketplace and really help those people excel in the roofing industry. So first and foremost, my name is Colt Moncla, and this is
Hudson Whitten.
And I think one of the best ways to really start this thing off is just kind of tell you about the history of Cool Roofs, where we started and specifically where we are now, and then dive into the background of each of us and really just understand the immense value that this individual brings to the marketplace in terms of roofing. So Cool Roofs, we both started in the roofing industry working for somebody else. I was in college. I actually was in the network marketing industry and kind of found myself too much month at the end of the money. And so I reached out to my father, someone who I admire drastically, and asked his opinion specifically on what it is that I should do in the world of business, because personally I didn't want at that time to go work a 9 to 5. And so he mentioned to me you should do door to door. And in doing so, I found the door-to-door industry as far as roofing, working for a specific company that, let's just say, is no longer around today. So worked for them, learned a lot about roofing, learned about a lot about what not to do, not how to grow a company and whatnot, and took that and decided to start my own company, Cool Roofs. As we've continued to grow, I mean, one of the most exciting things, I met Hudson Whitten here on LinkedIn, actually, networking and just seeing the immense amount of value he was bringing to LinkedIn, multiple jobs. The guy was in a different city. It seemed like a different state every single day on a different rooftop with a different view. And I was like, man, this guy's really crushing it. So we went on a coffee date. Going on that coffee date, we didn't really even talk about business, just hung out, became good friends, and then decided, hey, it was time for us to really start something special. So that's where we're at today. Fast forward from 2016 or 2017 into where we are now. It's wild. We've grown numerous offices across Texas. We service heavy sector in the residential side, and now we're really starting to develop our stronghold in the commercial, such as multifamily, preventative maintenance, commercial roofing for warehouses, you name it, and that's all because of Mr. Whitten and his skill set here. So with that being said, knowing the small backstory as to why Cool Roofs originated. And I think the important thing is to, before I hop over and really hear Hudson's story, we all have a why factor and what is that we do. Tremendously, my why factor is I always wanted to be similar to my father and his work ethic and what he's developed as far as what we call legacy in business. Our family company is a 105-year-old business based out of Beaumont, Texas, which it's really impressive to see a business grow from start to finish. Of course, my dad didn't start it. It was started by my great-grandfather, but that's what we wanted to do here. We wanted the opportunity to build a legacy, and in what industry could we do that in? What industry can we really work hard to develop ourselves to attract those right people to build a legacy as well? Starting in Texas, of course, now we have an office in Memphis, Tennessee with the great Trey Stafford, as well as Parks. And, man, we just love them so much and grateful for what they do. But, yeah, Hudson, that's kind of where we're at with Cool Roofs. We've branched out and transitioned into Cool Solar. As for our number one focus is the roofing sector. It's what motivates us, what gets us up in the morning. But tell me about yourself. Tell me, your experience in the roofing, how it started, and really some of your passions and what you've learned along the way. But we'll get into those two next questions, but really just start, how did Hudson get into roofing? How did you get to where you are today? And let you take it away.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and well said. And mind you all, Colt grew up in an entrepreneur-style family, which is why he is the beast he is today. He'll get more into that. So I was in and out of construction pretty much all my life. Always really good with my hands, never really did well in school. School was not what I wanted to do. In 2005, I kind of had a decision. It was my first semester at Florida State Business School. I was watching Florida State Miami play August 25th of 2005. Hurricane Katrina hit. 2 days later, I was working in Pascagoula, Mississippi, I had about 13 different job sites from Bay St. Louis area into New Orleans underneath my belt. Had no clue what I was doing in restoration. I was working with a company based out of Plano, Texas. We were going in, pretty much doing all the remediation at that time. I had a few project managers that were working for me, and it was kind of sink or swim, right? And I ended up being Michael Phelps as far as the construction industry is concerned. I did that job for about 3 years, then went back home, had some family issues going on, went home to take care of my mom's cleaning business. And then I got really strategic about what I wanted to do. I had been in construction in and out from the time I was probably 16 years old. And I took a deep dive into basically what was the highest profit margin in construction, and that was roofing and HVAC. So at that time, me and a buddy came to Austin, partied for a week, had fun in Austin, and ended up moving 30 days later. Well, I got a roofing job in outside sales and started doing door-to-door immediately then, and realized real fast without a pipeline, this wasn't something easy to get generated. To go in, be a door-to-door salesman, it was really tough, but it did show me that I enjoyed the sales process. I ended up picking an engineer job up at that time for EBTC, and because I had run a surveyor as a union framer, I ended up shooting the survey lines for all their CAD systems in the fab. I had a HAZWOPER at that time, and I did all their hazmat demo, hydrofluoric, sulfuric acid, stuff like that. So during that time, I was still focused on what business I kind of wanted to run, but I hadn't really taken the step out. I went through a couple life events, and I ended up picking up a job, a 1099 sales rep for TrueFast, with a buddy of mine, John Doan, who's now with Carnac.
And who's TrueFast?
TrueFast is an American-made manufacturer. They manufacture fasteners for commercial assemblies. So when I really wanted to dip my toes into roofing, I was like, well, let me first understand the commercial assembly and kind of work from there. Sales is sales. So I got a job traveling around the country, worked in about 38 different states with John doing adhesion test, which is 2-part adhesion, 1-part Instastick, you name it. We did it for Carlisle, Firestone, Suprema, Johns Mansfield, Mulehide, just all the major manufacturers. We were doing that. Even ES at the time that was bought up by TrueFast, which is a base sheet fastener. So I got to I expanded my knowledge in the commercial industry applications and then existing substrate. So I was doing pull test in Lake Charles, which Lake Charles Courthouse, you wouldn't know it. It's 5 inches of gypsum. Wow. It's old poured gypsum with literally like a chicken mesh. And that is the roof of the entire courthouse, which is strange for the amount of weight that it supports. Yeah.
So you've seen it all.
I've seen a bunch of it, yeah. And at that point, after working with TrueFast, I decided to go back to door-to-door sales.
Yep.
And understand the residential game. I understand now how to flash water, commercial assemblies, and that's where I can add value.
You say that's the most important part of understanding a commercial assembly is how to flash.
What's your substrate? How do you attach to it? And what you can and can't do for warranty applications, right? That's pretty much everything. And through working with TrueFast and people like John Doan, who's now with Carnac, they kind of gave me a knowledge now that's where we make all our money in the commercial industry, I would say. So I took an outside sales role job at Quality Assurance Roofing at that time, working with Anthony and Erica Bray. I helped them open up a branch in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. We had a parting with a hailstorm that came out in 2016. I reached out to another guy that owned state contractors, and that's when I kind of entered the entrepreneur state. And you met me a couple years later. So I had entered a relationship with a guy named Smoot Hall with state contractors, a great individual. I have nothing bad to say about him today. And I don't think I met with him for 2 years. I think we met up once. I told him I needed A, B, and C. If he provided that, I would bring him in a massive wealth. So I ended up working the 2016 hailstorm in San Antonio. Worked that for almost 2 years, I would say. And at that point, my owner decided to invest in a general contracting company, which brought us on a bunch of big multifamily players like Dayrise Residential, Mission Rock Properties, and a few other companies like that. And with these relationships, we started working hail claims. I think one of our biggest years, I think we re-roofed 14 complexes.
Wow.
Yeah, and we were doing interior turns at that point as well. So I focused on the roofing. We had about 13 other employees that focused on the interior and exterior turns. Once we moved kind of through COVID, it kind of changed the dynamic of everything. At that point, I was pretty much out in the field. I had some preventative maintenance work that was open, and our company overnight went from about 14 employees down to just me, who had a pipeline left. And when I was out working during COVID, I kind of kept blinders on, wasn't listening to social media, wasn't paying attention to anything else but my lane. And I think there was 5 or 6 flights I had where I was the only person on the plane.
Yeah, those are crazy times.
Like being in an Alfred Hitchcock movie or something.
Less people in an airport than a grocery store.
Yeah, well, I would even put in my headphones at the time just because of the negativity that was being talked. Like, I didn't want to live in that space. I didn't know what was going on. But I did know in order for me to have food on my plate, I needed to provide.
100%.
And it wasn't just me. It was the owner's family as well as our secretary at the time. So I went out and worked, and in a very short time frame, I realized the decisions that I was making out in the field were sound of mind.
Yep.
That all the training that I've had on other people's dime was finally coming to fruition. That I did have a good sound mind for business, and the decisions that I made out in the field were the right ones for the company to be successful. So it was at that point, I think you had reached out to me like a year prior, right?
Yep.
You know, on LinkedIn saying, hey, I dig what you're doing. Hey, I dig what you're doing. Like, where are you at this week kind of deal. And I never really took you up on that cup of coffee. Well, there was a relationship that I kind of went through, and I wanted a full change, especially with the company that I was currently with. I wasn't kind of seeing my vision for the future. And yeah, like you said, I reached out to you, and we had a cup of coffee. And I think we dated as bros for about 6 weeks, something like that, before talking business. And here we are today. And we've grown a really good residential nucleus in multiple markets right now. And here we are starting to expand out into the commercial application with a bunch of niches we haven't really even touched on yet, right? And I'm sure we'll explain in this podcast. So that's a little bit about my origin story. You know, been a jack of all trades for many of years. Decided to focus on roofing about 10 to 12 years ago exclusively because it was the highest profit margin with the fastest turnaround time as far as I was concerned. And I couldn't be happier about the legacy that we're building today with Cool Roofs. I do have a few questions for you. Like, what kind of got you to make the stand? Like, I know you've owned multiple businesses and been an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur for years. What kind of got you to take a step fully into roofing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think when I was young, it's funny, and this is for the young guys out there, even it doesn't really matter the age, but it's when you step into the entrepreneurial zone, especially where my focus was of creating a legacy, sometimes we fall victim of viewing ourselves rather than not really the success of your companies, but just the viewpoint of what it is that you're developing. And so for me at that time, you know, growing in this space, my whole thing was, and sadly to say, I wanted to look the part rather than be the part. Be known as the guy who, you know, owned multiple med spas, be known as the guy who had a foot in real estate, be known as the guy who had a foot in the CBD game, be known as the guy who was working and winning in construction. And you know, when you really just take a huge step back and you focus on your inner self, your inner peace and privacy, and really take a step away from the social media and rather looking apart than actually diving deep and being apart, because I truly believe when you go wide, you die. But when you take that step and go deep, you can truly reap on the benefits, and you start really perfecting your skill set in one specific area. And in perfecting that skill set, then you have the ability to attract the right people to come on board and really help with that one vision, that one goal. And so that's when I decided to burn the ships. You know, when you try to do many things, you develop many headaches, and many headaches create many issues, and many issues create a lot of money. But my favorite part about it all is the best part about life is not about the destination. The best part about life is going through these things, and particularly learning through those experiences, and never looking necessarily as anything as a problem, looking at everything as how can I learn and develop this as a solution to help me grow and become that much better. And so through the process, though, as I can say, from doing the Mets balls, from doing the network marketing, from doing different things, God has placed the specific people in my life that are now a part of Team Cool Roofs that I met through those journeys. So as much as a negative, people look at journeys and they get frustrated of, why did I do this? Why did I do that? I ask a lot of times, even for myself and for people, to look at it and say, hey, what did I learn from this?
Yeah.
How did I grow from this? What did I get from this that has now transitioned to be a positive to help me excel? And so that's really the main reason as to why. And then, of course, when we were doing the COVID testing, we had a bunch of COVID test sites. That was another business that I was in. Trey Stafford was in my old house. I had this thing called a mastermind room. And he said, hey, go ahead and put on the whiteboard real quick. Show me how this thing runs. And this thing, I mean, Cool Roof. Show me how this thing operates from start to finish. And let me just break it. Let me break it, show you where your issues are and whatnot. I mean, oh my gosh, it was issue after issue after issue as far as systematization and funnels and systems and operations and all that. That's what Trey does best. And he goes, man, we could really build something very special here with what it is that you're doing, with the profit margins that you're showing me. We could make this, where we can basically run it from our phone if you let me come apart and be a part of this. And so, with his locked in focus, with Hudson joining us, and then over the period of time, we've just been able to, blissfully add so many high-level thinkers, action item individuals that have come to the team because, it's not me who's made Cool Roofs. The idea was there, the thought was there, but every single person as a puzzle piece here is created to what it is today. And through my experiences and through my actions of the past have created where we are in the present moment. So that's why burn the ships, focus on one thing, and make it great. And that's where we're at.
Yeah. You make a lot of valid points. It wasn't until, I don't know, I would probably say 2-3 years ago, I realized my self-worth and that I was doing a lot of things in a really, like I was doing a lot of things really well, but I wasn't focused on my passion. Like meeting you and meeting somebody that's aligned with me and morally sound is rare in this business. And I think one of the first things that I told you whenever I met with you is like, look, I've lived in Austin for 13 years, but I don't have a network here. I've worked everywhere else. I've been in multiple states. When I come home, I'm exhausted. I really don't go out. And I'm looking to create a network. And within, 22 months now, I have a pipeline that is full. Retail leads alone. This is separate from our SEO. We're rocking and rolling. And that's all tribute to who you are and the network that you have around you. Like one of the things that attracted me to you so much is I traveled around the country. I stuck screws into roofs to pull and generate re-roof patterns for commercial assembly, right? Like I understand roofing through and through. There's not a problem on a roof system that I can't think through and have a creative solution, right? That's where I add my value. Where you add your value is on the finance side and being solution oriented. Like this is one of the main things that has attracted me to this group is even if we're in a reactive state, we immediately go to a solution versus pointing a finger. And that's everything in business, being able to find people that can cool tempers prevail, right?
Sure.
Yeah. And then the other side of this is like the mastermind that we have behind Trey and Parks, the team, the duo that they are, Trey with the admin, and then how Parks can break down like the stuff that he's created in Tennessee. And
look at the leadership week. I mean, look at what they brought about.
We went, just a little bit to the audience. Like we went into Memphis and did a mastermind of our company for 3 days. We're doing a 360 portal to where it's going to be training for our sales personnel that we bring on.
Education, A to Z, from residential to inspection to systems, processes, soon to be commercial roofing, insurance process, like a whole entire educational catalog to really just excel that individual from a T-ball to the MLB as fast as possible.
Right. And like sitting in the room while that's going on and doing the filming, it's just blowing my mind, the potential for this company. And the people that we have around us, the core group is so sound. Like I've never met anybody in business like this that wants to succeed in such, like, have you ever done something and you know you're doing it wrong?
No, all the time.
Right, exactly. You try and learn from that. Everything that we're doing right now, I know is right in my heart. I've never felt that before with another company.
I love it. And you say it so well, is like, and still learning from it too. I want to pick up on one thing that you mentioned, and this is like shout out for any other roofers out there that are watching this. You know, there's some key nuggets that you can pick up and implement into your lifestyle. But, you know, I find it funny. Roofing is one of the highest profit margins. It's one of the best ways to HVAC. It's one of the good ways to bring, but it's like that image. Like most people rather go be a real estate agent. I think it's because it's like a sexy term, like, oh, I'm a real estate agent, or like maybe they haven't made like $1 million roofer yet, like $1 million listing. I don't know what it is, but you can make so much more of a better opportunity for yourself and your future family, in my opinion, in roofing, if you really just focus on it without realizing the image. But here's the thing about the image. This is what Alex Morton, one of my good buddies, y'all please look him up on YouTube. He does calls with our company, really just to like dive in with us. Massive success. He's done over $80 million in net profits as far as his sales career, and over $2 billion in sales, which is just absolutely insane. So to have what I'm about to say, I say that to represent who he is as an individual, but also that his words matter. He said, look, you don't need to just be in Cool Roofs or whatever company you're with. You don't need to just be in that company X, Y, whatever it's called. That company needs to be within you. Right. And that shapes a lot about the networking side and really just being that walking billboard. And people can feel that too. So it's not only just you listen to this and you're like, oh, I'm going to automatically go into be a representation of the brand of my company. No, that comes with like the massive work that you put into yourself and becoming that better student of roofing, leaning on people who have what you want in the roofing industry and learning from them and molding yourself to be that kind of individual, learning the ins and outs of the roof installs and the roof repairs and the inspections, and really becoming that 100% value-driven individual within your industry, and then representing your brand with 100% authenticity, as well as just like clarity and confidence. That's so important, which then leads to that next step, which is networking. Always meeting and shaking hands and being signified as that person. And that was like we talked about a minute ago. That was my issue is, man, Colt does a little bit of everything. So it makes people wonder, does he really do anything good? Right. However, when I took that massive step back and said, you know what, I'm focused on one specific thing. I'm going to build the best team out there. We're going to build the biggest legacy. We're going to build the best brand. Then people see confidence in that. I mean, from just the jobs that we've done, from the large commercial jobs to Mattress Max, beautiful home in Lago Vista, like that was all done from networking. That wasn't done from SEO. That wasn't done from marketing paid on YouTube. That was done from us believing in our brand, believing in ourselves, and shaking the right hands to develop that kind of opportunity. I mean, we're quoting a beautiful 19 building, 2,000 something square, 26 building,
2,200 square.
2,200 square. I'm obviously not the numbers guy, but we were close. 2,200 square, beautiful apartment complex. So we have a fantastic inn, and because Cool Roofs threw a 4th of July amazing party for people to come and have fun and represent who we are. And we met an unbelievable contact there. So me explaining this, because you know I kind of went down a little rabbit hole there of the networking. But what do you, other than networking, or just if you want to focus on networking, do you believe that is a very positive value add to have and for your success in any roofing company, but especially here at Cool Roofs?
So I'm hearing a couple things in what you're discussing. Number one being your brand, like in your personal brand and how you put that out to the world. Like I was a little bit different. My brand, like I've identified as a roofer through and through for the past 12 years. I would say solid. Like when somebody comes up, I'm a roofer. Like I could care less what you think about me.
100%.
Like that's where I add value to the space. And prior to you meeting, what attracted us together, this is what I'm talking about, my brand.
Right.
I made it a point to post 365 days on LinkedIn. I might have missed a few. I won't say that I did it solid.
That's crazy. I told you looked like you were on a different view, different rooftop, different day. You're all over the place.
Yeah, well, I was traveling all over the East Coast. I think we held GC license in almost 13 different states at that time. And I was doing preventative maintenance work in re-roof application for commercial assembly, CapEx budgets. Like, if you don't know what CapEx budgets are, it's multifamily, pick and pull, going in, doing minimal repairs. We worked with a company that prior to them doing the acquisition, we would go in, we would give them budgets, and then once they acquired the property, we would go in, do preventative maintenance work, which we'll get into a little bit later. Do preventative maintenance work in order to add value for those spaces, right, with minimal warranties on it. Just that way, if they ever had any issue within the first year to 5 years of the property, we were the person to fix it, right? With that being said, like that, what I was putting out at that time, I didn't know how beneficial that was. Me just constantly adding value and content to the space. I can't even remember where I saw it. It might have been a book that I read, something. Something came across my plate that was like, look, just add value to Lewis Allis. That's what it was. Lewis Allis' podcast.
Awesome. Yeah, he's awesome.
It was his podcast. I had been listening to it. I was going through kind of a downturn, wanted to feel positive. And at that point, I was like, look, I'm going to promote who I am, my brand. I think I even labeled myself as a roof guru, which is a horrible thing to do. I'm not any guru.
I think you're a roof guru.
Yeah, whatever.
if you're not there yet, you're close to it.
If you're having to name yourself that, you're not it. It's just like if you call yourself dope.
Your name,
you're not dope, right?
Your name, the guru.
It has to be
someone's naming you. Well, I just named you the guru.
But, well, there's many people more knowledgeable out there in my space. Like, there's even people like Jay Rodriguez as far as applications and what that guy touches on a regular basis with Versico, Metro. Like, I don't even know who he's with anymore. Yep. But there are very knowledgeable people out there. But when it comes to actually install application, that's where I kind of step in. Yep. Right? Being able to figure out the project management and the insights, the ins and outs. But back to brand. I'll go down rabbit holes all day long. But when I figured out that me adding value to my space is how I was going to create the wealth around me, at that point I didn't realize that it was the people around me that were going to help with that. So I made a lot of people a lot of money. But the cool thing about it is I was getting paid to get an education for my future. Like all the problems that my past owner had, I was able to work through those, figure out the solutions, and then also not have to suffer the consequences on our dime. So brand recognition, first and foremost. One thing that I've seen you be able to do is the way that you network it with individuals. It's one of the most infectious things I've ever seen. Never seen anybody do it. It's one of the reasons that I was attracted to you, because I was like, look, this guy can enter a room. He can command a room, not just off of his physical presence, but how he communicates to people, how he treats individual people. He's truly has a good heart, and he emotes that into a room. And through that, we don't even need an SEO. You know what I mean? We have all those things in order to generate business to it, but we have majority of retail leads based off of relationships. And as a salesperson, that is something you have taught me, even though I've known it for years. But that's something that you have given me that is priceless in this field.
I appreciate that. And it's kind of like you talked about the cupcake. If we were to put the cherry on top, it's more of a lot of people living the life, what's in it for me.
Right.
However, within any industry that you're in and your sales and excelling, you need to live the lifestyle with the mindset of saying, like you said, how can I add value? Right. What is in the best interest for the homeowner that I'm working with? And, you know, it's so powerful. I mean, from networking, going to Tony Robbins events, Bob Proctor roundtable events, you know, you can go to all these events and different networking meetups and all that. And it's all about the hands that you shake and really how you can add value to that person's life, but also on the education side. Like you said something when we were talking about the guru. One thing that I really respect about you is I think most companies die because they stop learning. Yeah. Most sales reps become complacent because they stop learning, or they think they already know it all. And one thing Kevin Trudeau talks about is like we always have to be getting it. Like we always have to be learning every single day. The day that you take a step back and say, oh, I got it, oh, I know it all, doesn't really turn out too well for you in the direction of your company. You always have to have that mindset. Like you mentioned a minute ago, as a company, as a business owner, never be reactive. Always be responsive. Like we will find ourselves, no one's perfect in a reactive situation, but let the steam cool off. Take a huge step back and understand, hey, how can I add value and change this situation? How can I find the solution for this situation? And all in all, on top of that, in doing so, you have the ability to really create that perfect, I guess you say culture for your company, for sales reps to learn that. So in the field, two big things that I take away is rather than reactive, be responsive. And be fine with being wrong, but always figure out how to be right.
Right.
So if you don't know the answer, find it. Do the research. If you don't know the roofing assembly, find it. Do the research. And I think that'd be cool for us, and why I like to do this podcast is to bring that roofing company together, or roofing industry together, to help provide value for all, to help people really, so we can build a cool brand, not only just for our company, but for the industry in itself. Clean up the messiness, clean up. And so with that being said, networking, we talked about it. That's a great nugget for you sales reps. But what do you think sets us apart from other companies out there?
Oh, great book, How to Influence Friends. Read that if you need help with networking. That's everything you need to know. What sets us apart? Ask me that question one more time.
Yeah, so cool roofs, Texas, Tennessee. Roofing's roofing, suppliers are supplier. My dad said it once. He goes, Cole, it's crazy, because my dad has a food company, and I thought this was one of the coolest sayings he ever told me. He goes, we all get the food from the same people. It's just how we prepare it and bring it to the marketplace that sets us apart, makes us different. Benny Keith, Cisco, they all deliver the same food. It just is up to the chef, and it's up to the restaurant, it's up to the food companies of how they bring that value to the marketplace that sets us apart. So with that being said, we all get our material from the same places. We all work with the same suppliers. What sets us apart?
It's our personnel. That's first and foremost in the communication. Like, if somebody is doing a warranty applicable system, whether it's Certainty, GAF, Owens Corning, this, that, the other, generally those roofs are going to be installed the same, especially if they're using subcontractors. They may even be using the same subcontractors, who knows. With that being said, that funnels down to your sales rep and the knowledge that sales rep has, and the experience that he has in the field. And that can be cut into a short span when you have a very knowledgeable person mentoring somebody else in the space. And one of the things that I do not see a lot of, and I never experienced in the roofing industry, was mentorship. Like, I was literally thrown in a truck.
Oh, here's a shirt. Here's a
hat.
hat.
Here's a shirt. Like,
here's a
go
neighborhood
knock on that door.
Got hit with hail.
Just go hit that door. And I go knock on the door, and the door's being slammed on my face.
Yep.
And we're in Texas, right? You may have a gun pulled on you. It's a little extreme, but it has happened.
happens.
Like, it literally has happened. So that is something that I wanted to curve whenever I had my own business. It was one of the things that I was like, look, if we can bestow the knowledge that we currently have from all our years of experience, create a crash course, which is our 360 platform, in order for sales reps to be successful, at that point, we're adding value to our space. Like, a lot of, I see hard pressure sales, right?
Yep.
Like, we even had a guy on board with our team that was a high pressure sales guy.
Super hard.
I know, and I told him,
Call him sledgehammer.
Yeah, that's not how I sell.
Super hard.
I highly advise that you rethink what you're doing.
Right.
If somebody is sweating to sign a contract, we're not adding value at that point. Yep. You may get the contract. Great job on the sales, but you scare me as an individual.
Yeah, it's a different time now.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we can truly sit back, understand what our customers' needs are, and ask some qualifying questions. Like, I don't think customers get asked, like, hey, what's your 5-year? What's your 10-year plan? Is this your forever home? Where do you see your family? Like, is this turning into a rental property? Like, yes, you may be going through a significant storm event. You may have some insurance proceeds to replace this roof. But how can we add the most value to this situation to set you up for the long haul to where you don't have to worry about this? If we can approach each individual customer as a human being and meet them on their terms, then build a roof system around that, I feel like we're adding value at the end of the day. We're not just being a turn and burn salesperson. We're taking money that is allocated for a roofing system and then offering value. And if we can lead from that standpoint, I think it sets us apart. Like, we're, over 70% water? I'm not going to give you the exact numbers, and I'm sure I'll get beat up on the statistics on it. But whenever we're leading from transparency, that is openly communicated and openly received. It's transparent. So, knowledge-based education in roofing into each individual sales rep, and then a guidance process and mentorship for them to be successful in their field. Yeah. That is what sets us apart from everybody else. Yeah. We're not just putting somebody in a truck and sending them out to go. We're creating systems and fail-safes and just as much product knowledge as we can get at their fingertips at any given time, as well as systems that allow them to be able to do their job at a very fast manner.
And in doing so, I think you might in my opinion, and I'll just say this, you might have like the highest close rate of any roofer I ever met. What do you think you're cooking with right now?
It's above 90%.
Yeah. And I say that, and it's a very simple formula. Number one, lead with communication. Like, I think the lack of communication within our space is just at a drastic decline. Most people don't want to take the time to ask the proper questions, to find the proper answer, to see how you can provide value. They don't communicate at all. They don't build that relationship. It's more of like, here's an estimate, there you go. And that's why I really admired you and the turn of direction for Cool Roofs. It's like, hey, a lead comes in, and even if we do lose the deal, we put our foot forward with the utmost education for that homeowner, not only to understand like the solution to what it is that they're receiving as an issue and it's roofing related, but number two, the education on the products and services that we offer, but then the education of how we found their roof, their roofing condition, their issues on the roof. You doing that amazing report, putting it together to really just put in front of the homeowner, show them through image and throw them through education. That just sets yourself apart drastically from just like, here's a quote, this is what it is, call your insurance. Hey, have you called your insurance yet? You need to call your insurance. Like, that's basically what door-to-door guys are. Like, hey, have you talked to your insurance? No, you have. All right, well, cool, let's go and call them. Like, why are we leading like that? Why are we looking and roofing right now as an industry as a whole is just a numbers game, rather than like, hey, let's build a reputation, let's build a brand, let's offer that 5-star service. And I think that's something that you've done so well. So outside of that, I know that's a leading factor. Do you see anything else as far as Cool Roofs and what is that we offer to the marketplace for a consumer standpoint, but as well as for like a rep standpoint to work here and build a legacy? Do you see anything indifferent there as well that you like to touch on?
Yeah, so I've worked with multiple companies and ran multiple sales divisions, and they weren't ran properly. I was still learning myself, so mind you. The systems that we currently have, from our Job Nimbus CRM through Company Cam, Real Site, I could sit here and go on with the list as far as roofer for our measurements, everything. What we have in place to be able to add value to our customers is everything. Like, 3 hours, we can have an estimate out, literally. That's worst case scenario. And then the other side of it is, what I see different in this is these tools, if our sales reps invest the time to learn about the tools, at that point they're able to add more value. Now it's up to the sales rep. Like, I see many guys right now that are extremely successful and they're only running maybe 20 hours and they can make over 6 figures.
Crazy.
But if I literally told you, hey, by the way, you're limiting yourself, and I challenge you to put in 40 hours, do you even know what that looks like? Do you know what a 40-hour work week looks like? Do you know that you're probably going to be laying on your couch for a day if you truly go out and beat the streets for 40 hours? And I'm not talking about making phone calls, but I'm literally going to talk out and be a pillar in your community and hit it hard, because you're going to be exhausted if you truly do that. And what we offer at Cool Roofs is setting up a platform for you to be successful in the sales space and whatever you want to do. We can teach you to be an entrepreneur for the remainder of your life. Yep. And if you choose to leave, like, we want you to be a part of our 70-30 business model in a box. You know what I mean? We want you to grow a branch. Yep. But with that being said, we're still not going to hold back in educating you. Like, I'm not always the easiest guy to work with. That's why our relationship works so well, right? Like, I'm the guy that if you tell me something, I'm literally going to look at you and be like, I refuse to accept your limiting beliefs.
100%.
This is what I see. This is what I see in you.
Hear that a lot. I love it.
Yeah, I know. And then and then you're the best friend on the other side of it, right? And I think that dynamic works really well with sales personnel. What I see in our space right now, like, a lot of the mentors that I had, and this is like a whole nother side note, I never met, you know what I mean? Like, huge on Napoleon Hill, Earl Nightingale, Bob Proctor, Jim Rome. Like, I did like Tony Robbins, but never really made it to an event, anything like that. I made it to one of your Alex Morton's Break the Code event, which was huge, listening to Grant Cardone.
At my lab.
Yeah. So the thing about it is we are a personal development company first and foremost. And that personal development goes with our sales reps as well as educating our customers. Yep. If we're leading from the point of education and allow people to make sound decisions, even included our sales reps, at that point we're doing a service to our craft. I feel like there is enough to go around. There are so many different roofing companies out there.
Sure.
But how we set ourselves apart is being able to educate educate the future for the next step in this. And it's something that I take pride in, and I think we do really well here at Colt Roofs. So that's one thing that kind of sets us apart from everywhere else.
Yeah, and that's so important is the personal development side, and it's just shifting the proper mindset on really how to think and look at things. I mean, one of my favorite quotes is like, in order for things to change, the way that you look at the things, or I forget how it goes, but like we must like shift the way that we view things in order for those things to actually change.
Right.
And a lot of the reps that I meet, you're right, they have a lot of limited beliefs. And I don't know if that's a factor from social media at a young age where most people think that, you should make $250,000 by only working so much. And the reality is like, look, $250,000 is a ton of money.
Right.
$500,000 is a ton of money. $100,000 is a ton of money. But like, you have to become that person to earn that. Like, you don't just overnight earn that. Jim Rohn says it best. Like, in order for us to create massive wealth, we have to first become extremely valuable. And the more valuable that we become, that value that we bring to the marketplace, that marketplace determines the reward of what it is that we deserve.
Right.
And so when I look at that, it's like I'm in a constant everyday work on me. And I mean, we have this cool thing here at Cool Roofs. One of my favorite quotes is, I work on me for you and you work on you for me. And if we all continue to work on each other and master our craft, not only on education as far as roofing, but education as far as like finding the mentor. And I like to tell people this, like, I love Alex Morton. I love Ed Milet. And as Alex says, like, Ed's a phenomenal guy to look at because Ed's an all-around guy. He's a fantastic father. He's a fantastic mentor. He's a fantastic businessman. He's a fantastic husband. He checks a lot of boxes that I call the pillars of success, want to follow as well. So what am I getting at here? Like, you can get into the sea of personal development, you can drown because you'll hear so many different things. You got your Mr. Grant Cardone here just shoving the hard sell down you. Then you got your Mr. Jim Rohn just simply putting a beautiful understanding of how we should properly live our life. And so I'm getting at is, when you enter that personal development phase, he just mentioned a lot of people. I have a beautiful painting in my office that reflects the people that I listen to. But I'm getting at is, pick one person or pick two that you really resemble with, or that you see that is living the life, or, handling objections or responding to, reactatory events. Like, find that one person that you truly admire and mirror them, do what they say, and really start to implement that into your life. It's called the mirror effect. And so those are a couple of the people that we mirror, but I know that I've met some people, like we have one sales rep that goes, "Oh, I've heard all this before." And I'm like, well, that's fantastic, but you're where you are today, the same place as when you heard all that before. So as Tony says, I love Tony. He says, knowledge is power, but it's not. He said, in reality, applied knowledge is power. So when jumping into personal development, you can write your goals down daily. You can be a personal development fanatic. You can read all the books. You can build your big library. But until you actually take that education and apply it to the marketplace is when you'll truly see the results. And I promise you'll see the results. So I'm really glad that you brought up the importance of really us telling people we're a personal development company first and roofing second. I've seen some people skedaddle when they heard that. But then I've also seen some people sit back, look at really what we do and understand the value of that, and they've changed their life completely. And so, those are some important factors that I know that set us apart at a high level. But, what are some things as far as getting into the commercial sector that we want to talk that's very valuable? Like, today we've had the opportunity to talk about the power of networking, the power of communication, some areas of Cool Roofs that definitely set us apart. But for those in roofing, I've noticed people get in roofing and they start in the residential sector. Number two, once they do that, they want to either start their own company or they want to excel in the commercial sector. Both have one big word that I love. It's called liability. And they don't understand what goes into the company. They don't understand what goes into commercial roofing. So with that being said, if you were just getting into commercial roofing, I know you like to talk on preventative maintenance and whatnot. What would be some of your key takeaways as far as the importance of first being educated in commercial roofing, some issues that could arise, or just like your overall passion? Maybe start there with your passion towards commercial roofing and how you like to work with customers in that realm.
Yeah, so I've been very fortunate to be able to learn application from the substrate up, substrate being your decking. So there really hasn't been a roof system from tectum to gypsum that I really haven't encountered. With that being said, what I really take pride in is when I walk onto a job site is creating options for that owner based on what's installed now currently. How do we lessen our carbon footprint? Is a coating a good application for this? Do we need to use a high solid versus acrylic? Do we need to remove down to decking? Do we have structural issues on this job site? So it's be able to consolidate all that information in a very fast time frame, turn that around and allow an owner to make an educated decision. With that being said, there's nothing more that I take pride in. And like if you look at roofing as a whole, roofing is usually a deferred maintenance. It's one of the last things, but there's ways that we can do preventative maintenance scopes to where owners can write this off at the end of the year, depending on the state that they're currently working in. There are different tax laws in different states. But with that being said, if we can step in and we can prolong the life of an existing roof system without putting a Band-Aid on it, fix it the right way. At that point, we're adding value to that roof system and we're lessening the carbon footprint on the earth, right? So it's those types of situations that I love being able to add value to. We approach the residential nucleus because this is another side of commercial that comes into play. And we did that in order for us to build an infrastructure to where we could move fluidly into the commercial and multifamily roofing space. When it comes into commercial application as well as multifamily, your payment terms go out 30, 60, 90-day terms. Yep. How are we floating that money? What resources are we bringing on board? At this point, do we have a 40-hour W-2 40-hour employee that's doing our repairs on commercial building application? What type of relationships are we building? Are we working with HVAC companies, property management companies, general contracting companies, yep, all the above in order to, and then what are our systems in place in order to be able to add value in real time? What are our checks and balances? Once we arrive on the job site, are we looking at the underside of the roof system to diagnose what's going on at the top? Are we providing our customers videos and pictures of what's going on prior to seeing? Do we have limits as far as pre-approval, say $550 for any repair that we're doing? So it's getting those systems in place to be able to pivot or to be able to move into the commercial industry. And each individual company is going to be a little bit different. But first and foremost, it boils down to application and troubleshooting. So we need to understand where the leak is coming from and how to properly rectify it. And are we putting a Band-Aid or are we putting a permanent fix, and are we communicating what we're doing? Like if we give a good, better, best price, like, hey, by the way, this is a temporary fix. We highly recommend that you remove this roof system down to the deck and repair a 200 square feet area in order for us to add value and shed water properly. Like if we're actually giving our customer that and letting them know that we can temporarily repair this and we're not warranting these issues, that this is a Band-Aid and we highly recommend that, at that point we're adding value to our customer. 100%. And that decision's on them. But a lot of this can be avoided if you're doing biannual and annual inspections on your building. And a lot of owners don't want to do this, right? They're just like, oh, it's just another roofer generating costs. Well, what if we came out and we wrote in a contract for $1,800, say a year, and we go out and we walk your roof system 2 times a year? And at that point, you can write that off on your taxes. And if you ever have a leak on your property, you're calling us to fix it free of charge. Like, we can go out and we can create preventative maintenance scopes in order to maintain people's buildings that are tax deferred, right? So at that point, I feel like we're able to take a step onto a roof, add value to a customer, and what they decide to do at that point is on them. Yep. But that's how we add value with the preventative maintenance. And with that being said, if we're maintaining a building and they do need to go through a re-roof application, we're going to be able to be one of those bids going into it. And that's how I feel like we add value into the commercial space. Now, if you look at like multifamily as a whole, roofing would be cream of the crop. A lot of times they want you to do the interior turns. They want you to do the CapEx exterior turns. Well, I'll tell you what, we're a roofing company, yep, first and foremost, and that's what we focus on. That's what we do best. I don't want to sit there and take on interior turns and exterior turns. And I know a lot of people say, well, you're turning down money. Actually, no, I'm focusing on the craft that I am best at, and that's where I add the most value. I am a one-trick pony when it comes to this, and the reason I do that is because when I walk away from that building, you're not going to have a leak.
Yep.
I'm adding value to that space. I'm being able to control what I do best.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people would talk against that and say differently, but at that point, that's kind of the direction and trajectory we're heading as a whole.
Yep. And I think that's so valued, is just like mastering the craft, sticking to what it is that we provide in terms of our services. And you see that a lot. Like in roofing, most people try and chew on things that they've never eaten before, and it ends up biting them in the ass. Yeah. And or biting them in the butt. Sorry, podcast. But it puts them in a spectrum where they actually end up losing money rather than excelling. And so that's another reason why I decided to quit back in the day, everything that I was doing and burning the ships, to focus on one thing. So you know how to resolve problems. If there is an issue, you know how to resolve it. You're on top of it. You have the proper team, the proper infrastructure to handle that. But I mean, you nailed it. For someone who has commercial properties listening to this, I think one of the most important things to realize is that when it comes to roofing, you want to have that primary relationship on a roofer who's not here looking just to make a buck, but really here looking at the property as almost as it's its own, to realize, how do we mitigate any leaks? How do we mitigate any further damage? How do we take this property and make sure that we provide the utmost value, but then also an inspection schedule that follows that to keep an attentive look onto it to assure that no further issues come about. And that's just that one area that we were talking about that sets us apart from, I think, a lot of the roofers out there. But, you know, we're kind of getting to a spot where we got about 5, maybe 10 more minutes left on the podcast itself, as we've made a goal just to have our first podcast is an hour. Some of the things that we are going to come on here and talk about at a high level are different products, different services, different roof systems. We're going to create different videos and photos and imagery of some roofs, and then we're going to talk about them and talk about the assemblies, talk about what we did right. Hudson's going to talk about the assemblies and what's going on, and we're going to learn. And that's really the premise of this podcast, is not only just for our internal team, to see the leadership here and see what it is that we're doing to help them grow. But for those of you in the industry who feel like you don't have that support, right, who feel like someone just took the roof mastery course and said, hey, read this, here's a hat, here's a shirt, go knock doors and let's figure it out. That's not what we want. We want to find individuals within this space, as well as the people that we have, and go deep and really create that legacy in the roofing industry, providing the proper tools, providing the proper knowledge. And that is the premise and the development of this podcast, to continue to assure that value for you and learn as long as we grow. So, you know, I'm just curious, do you have any other insights before we wrap up on this first podcast that you want to offer?
Yeah, I mean, to any potential sales reps that are listening out there, there's a really good book. It's 15 Commitments of a Conscious Leader. And in this book, it talks about being above the line. One thing that we do really well here is we're going to remove you from that victim, villain, hero thinking. Yep. Any low vibration thinking. We're going to hold you accountable for your actions that you're putting out on a day-to-day basis in order for you to be set up for a platform for self-growth in life. Like, it's very rare in life that people flip that switch. But if you're at a point to where you want to flip that switch and you want to excel, life is a process. It never stops. But there is a wealth of knowledge here for you to have direction, to move forward, and to become a man or a woman in your industry and a powerhouse out that. So I will say, if you're questioning where you're at and what you're doing today, do yourself a favor and find like-minded individuals. It doesn't have to be us, but others in the space that are going to educate you to be a master of your craft. That's all I will say. Do yourself a service and take pride in what you're doing. Yeah,
and I couldn't agree with that more, especially living in the victim world that we have today. We want to help people step out of that. And there's one thing that I like to look at. It's consume versus produce. Right. It's the value of understanding, like, where are you at today? Are you living a consumption-driven lifestyle? Is alcohol taking you over? Is relationships that are toxic taking over? The people that you surround yourself with, like, is it consuming you? Because my opinion here is we're God's highest form of creation. With that being said, it says in the Bible that we are made in God's image. Okay, so first off, we're creatures, and the word creature, it says create. So on this time in this earth, I feel like we need to be in the production-oriented lifestyle where we're always creating new opportunities for ourselves, creating the best out of what the day has to give. As Jim Rohn says, let's not get through the day, let's get from the day, and have the ability to take each day and become that much better, to grow 1%. A fantastic book is called The Darren Hardy or The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And it talks about the importance of growing 1% every single day, not being in that consumption negative, talking about people. Be around people who talk about ideas. Don't be around people who are talking about people, you know, and if they're talking about people, make sure they're talking about some mentors that they're looking up to that are making an impact on their life. And so for me, you know, I feel the importance of surrounding yourself with those people who want to see you grow at a high level and make that the toxic environment that's just like, it's like, I want that, you know, like this is so good for me. Not like step away from the toxic environment. That's what I mean. Step away from the toxic environment and jump into an environment that helps you excel at a high level. And I think that's what Cool Roofs offers, and just be around those kind of people. So look, we're excited. All we'd ask is, you know, make a commitment to yourself after watching this podcast. If it's nothing roofing related, make it a commitment to work on yourself daily. That's going to the gym, watching what you eat, help your relationship grow with, you know, showing to the person that you do share a relationship with, showing to the relationships around you to help uplift people. In a time of just darkness right now, I think that's one of the biggest things that we need is for somebody appealing to community to bring light. And so with that being said, we also want to ask that, you know, on YouTube, you subscribe to this as we're going to have multiple different videos, not just podcast driven, but you'll find us on a rooftop with a beautiful view. Hudson talking through some systems that we're installing, some issues that we found, and the solutions that we're bringing to that. So definitely excited that this was our first podcast. I think we absolutely crushed it. If not, I'll just say this, leaving it, I had a freaking blast doing this. So excited for many more, and excited to continue to grow this brand Cool Roofs with the people I love, and excited to have a lot of our other team members on the next podcast. So Hudson, I appreciate it, man.
I appreciate you. I'm going to say one final thing. Like, if you're in a down spot right now in life, take 30 minutes to walk in nature, read 10 pages a day, and go work out for 1 hour, and form a new relationship. Smile at somebody, man. It's that simple. Change your day. Love you guys all. Appreciate it. This has been a blast.
I love it. Cool Roofs to the moon. Appreciate y'all. Come on.